So welcome everybody to another one of our AgTech showcase that we've been doing now for just under a year. I'm Carl Unterschutz at Accelerate Montana Rural Innovation Initiative, and our goal is to support all of you as rural innovators and entrepreneurs and business owners. And this AgTech showcase, I was telling Leo before we got recording here, was really an outgrowth from a meeting that was had with the Montana World Trade Center, the governor's office, and the Consul General of Israel, and a lot of interest really in Montana and around technology and agriculture. And we picked it up as a program to continue this conversation. And we've really grown it just as this forum right here, just a place to have a conversation, to highlight what's happening in Montana by Montanans and what's the innovation that's occurring in rural Montana that others might want to jump into, participate with, and so forth. So this is really a forum for conversation. So I'll say it here and I'll try to say it again at the end, but if any of you on here have an idea of what the next topic might be, or a company you want to highlight, or if any of you have a company, folks out there listening to the recording, you want to be on here, you're in Montana working on technology, drop me a line. I'll stick my email in the chat right after we're done, and shoot me a message, because this really is a place for all of you to have this conversation and see what kind of opportunities there are. So with that, I'm not going to speak very much here. I'm just going to kick it off because we have three great presenters, and I want to give the time to them and all of you to ask questions. And I suspect we might have a few more people joining us. So with that, we got first up Ford Smith. Do you want to kick it off? And all of you, please do a quick introduction so it's on the recording. And with your presentation, I assume, and feel free to put your contact information in there too, as you wish. And then we'll go from Ford, we'll go to Leo, and then to Colin.
Sounds good. Let me get my screen shared.
Looks good.
There we go. Hi, everyone. My name is Ford Smith. I work with Regenerative Land Solutions. And today I'm going to talk about looking at agriculture through a biological lens. In nature, plants grow like this picture. There's the sun, plants do photosynthesis. They exude sugars out their roots. Specific sugars can attract different bacteria or fungi to break down minerals that plant might need at that specific time. Copper or boron, whatever the plant needs. And then that fungi can directly feed the plant, or in a lot of situations, the protozoa break down and eat the bacteria or fungi, and that releases the nutrients for the plant. That creates a really healthy soil system. We're trying to simulate that in agriculture if we can. This will help all these benefits of healthy soils. It result in natural nutrient cycling, fewer chemical inputs, greater profitability. Germination rates for the plants we're trying to grow increase, and you end up with less weed pressure. I'll go into that here in a minute. The healthier plants are more disease resistant and more insect resistant as well. This natural nutrient cycling creates more nutrient dense crops, which is healthier food for people or healthier grass for cows. Bacteria and fungi, they create micro and macro soil aggregates, which creates better soil structure, which allows for more air and water holding capacity, less compaction, and cleaner water. In agriculture, we have all sorts of disturbance. We're constantly disturbing the soil ecosystem, be it through tilling or pesticides or salty chemical fertilizers. And this pushes us backwards on this ecological succession. As you can see, very bacterially dominated soils like annual weeds and grasses. The crops are generally trying to grow, and perennial grasses want a more balanced system, and then it goes up to trees. So how do we manage for healthy soils in soil biology? Most people, they take chemistry tests, it tells them how much nitrogen, phosphorus they need, but we like to layer in biology tests on top of that. And this helps us get a good picture of what is going on in our soil biology. So here's an example of one of those. You can see we've got total bacteria, total fungi, activity levels. We go through all the ratios. And then you got your protozoa as well, and that's what helps create your natural
See if
nutrients.
anybody's there. I always do it. I always look at all my mirrors.
Yeah. So we got started on this journey with my dad, Vern. This is a picture of our home ranch. Our first example we started with. I've been moving hand line on these fields since I was a little kid. But this field, you can see this top steep hillside section always struggled. So he did a soil biology test on that section and his fields in general. And what he found was that the soils they had low biological activity. So what he did is he treated them with a probiotic and a prebiotic for the soil 2 years in a row. And this is the early spring. You can see that helped with 2 treatments in 2 years. That side on the left had significantly thicker and healthier. This is a grass alfalfa stand. And then on the untreated side, it was still thin like it always was. We happened to have a professor at MSU, Jed Eberly, come by, and he took 2 samples. So that first test we showed you, that was direct microscopy. That's a relatively coarse test that's easy and affordable for folks to do. But Jed, he took 2 samples for DNA sequencing. And what he found was on that untreated side, there was significantly more bacteria associated with unhealthy acidic soils. And this is something these fields have struggled with for 20 years. They've always been acidic, but getting that biology healthy helped balance out the system. And this got us excited about doing more research and trying to dive deeper into how we might be able to do this at scale. So we partnered up with Dr. Jed Eberly and MSU, and then some neighbors down the road at AMB West. We set up a replicated study. We were testing the same products Vern tried on his field, Provide and Revive. They're a wide spectrum, highly diverse probiotic, and Revive's a food source for the fungi. And then we tested it against the alternative out there. There's lots of bacteria that's made in a lab. They pick out like specific bacteria they think might be helpful. So we did some Tanio products, Spectrum and the food source Nutrinate. Originally, we had set up with compost. We were excited about that, but it was logistically very difficult to get compost out there and prohibitively expensive. So we stopped it after the first year, but we did 2 treatments on 2 sites. One was a irrigated alfalfa field and the other was a irrigated pasture. And on both of these, we just put the biology on top of the regular conventional fertility program. What we found after 2 years was the organic matter, soil organic matter, your carbon went up on the diverse treatments with Provide. And then we also saw more nutrients being available. We did chemistry testing as well on these fields. So there's more natural nutrient cycling on the biologically treated sections. And this resulted in more and higher quality feed. We had increased dry weight on the Provide fields, and we also had higher relative feed value on both biological sides. So with these ones, we were just doing biology over the fertility program. And what we really would like to do is have folks rethink their entire fertility program and try and make it more biologically friendly on all levels. So same at AMB West, we got a brand new field. That was going to be a new grass alfalfa mix. And we split this one just in half, but we did testing and we devised a biological approach on one side where we did those biological products. And then we did fish hydrolysate for the nitrogen source. And then we did a less salty, which is salt is the main problem with a lot of these chemical fertilizers. But we did a G22 in that mix. And then on the other side, they just did their traditional, what they always do program. Here you can see the testing, pre-treatment testing. These fields were bacterially dominated, which on that ecological succession chart we saw is going to result in more annual grasses and annual weeds. And also it had a very low biological activities. So the first summer after treating it, we did this in the fall. We had MSU help us set up a sampling grid to look at weeds. We threw all these hoops on both sides. And then here you can see some pictures we took. On the biological side, there was significantly less mustard. And when we did the sampling, we saw there's about 4 times as many weeds on the traditional chemistry side. Just having that soil not be balanced for the perennial grasses we wanted, as you could kind of tell from the pre-testing, it was going to be set up to have more of these annual weeds. We also tested the feed value on these fields after they cut and baled the hay. Slightly higher protein, a little bit higher relative feed value on the biological side. We did tissue testing. You can see the nitrogen was higher and the potassium was higher on the biological side, just having healthier soils, cycling the nutrients that the plants need to create these healthier plants. And if you look closely at these pictures, you can see on that traditional, on the chemistry side, there's more bare ground. The germination wasn't as good. It's hard to get perennial grasses to germinate in a bacterially dominated soil without any help. And that you can see on these pictures there. We went back the next summer, spring, this year, 2021. These are perennial pastures, so we wanted to see or perennial hayfields. We wanted to see what we got in year 2, see if these results stayed the same. We had a local NRCS agent come out, help us do these hoop tossing sampling, and we found that we had significantly more cash metal brome on the biological side, still higher production. We also saw that there was those weeds, they didn't just go away, those bare spots didn't fill in automatically, so the chemistry side still had significantly more weeds than the biological side. We do more than just irrigated. There's, on dry land, a lot of people in Montana struggle with annual invasive grasses, like cheatgrass. We had an example in Texas, they have rescue grass that's related to cheatgrass, the same family. And here they were trying to reseed perennial grasses. On the untreated side, you can see it looks like more grass, but that's just all the rescue grass taking over again. And on the biologically treated side, they had more of the grasses that they wanted germinated and insignificantly less rescue grass. We also work with row crops here in Montana, wheat. We have a friend who's a progressive farmer out near Three Forks. He's really excited about biologicals. He runs all his own trials. He had 14 plots set up. 2 of them he did provide and revide from Earth Fort. Granted, this was a really bad year. This was 2 years ago, not a lot of rain, but you can see they had higher yields on the Earth Fort plots and the bio release. That's a different biological he was trialing. They both outperform the chemical controls. So we work all over the country. Do a lot of work in California, Illinois. We've got tons of resources and case studies on our website if you want to read more. And with that, I'm ready for some questions.
Thanks, Ford. Yeah, anybody, you can just unmute, ask some questions. If your audio is not working great, you can type them in the chat and I'll read them. Want to do that? Sometimes if you're on mute right now, we're not hearing you. Or I sort of have a maybe indirect question to the product and to your the technology you're developing here. But where do you see the opportunity of this going, sort of more broadly, maybe in 2 or 3, 5 years for you all, and sort of maybe some other wraparound kind of activity it might stimulate that we're not seeing today?
I mean, there's a lot of growth in just what we're doing right now. Most folks, when you talk to them about this, is something they've never heard of. So I think there's a lot of potential there. And then also, as you like for the side-by-side example where we redid the fertility program, there's all sorts of biologically friendly fertility products out there. Other companies developing stuff. There's a company we work with that does a fish hydrolysis where they harvest invasive Asian carp, which is super cool. There's companies that are developing different kelp products and just growing there's algae companies. I think it's a local algae company that MSU is working with. So there's all sorts of opportunities for producers and different agriculture professionals to help create biologically friendly products outside of just what we're working with.
Any questions out there? Sue, I see you're unmuted. Matthew?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, what's your biggest barrier, I guess, when you're selling this to producers, this approach, especially if they haven't heard it before? Is it believing the data, believing the return and the data that you have, or is it just the attachment to the more artificial fertilizers, or what transpires there?
Yeah, most of the time when we generally take more than 10 minutes to explain it. I had to go through it all very quickly, but most folks are interested in doing it. It's more twofold. It's implementing it can be difficult. Like for example, on these fields, they're redoing their pivots so that they can inject it, but generally they're used to just calling up their fertilizer company and they'll come just do it for them. So it's the convenience of the status quo is very strong. And then relationships, people are used to working with their fertilizer rep, and it just takes a while for them to change over. But most of the time, once people give it a try, you see that it works, they're open to it. But they gotta figure out a way to implement it. It's working with something like fish. We've had people who done fish the first year, saw that it worked, and they just didn't want to deal with the hassles of applying fish versus having somebody else come put dry fertilizer down.
Yeah, from an entrepreneurial perspective, I could see it. Well, there's an opportunity. How do we solve that problem, right? Maybe that's not yours to solve. Maybe someone out there is listening who could say, "Oh, I can figure out a way to solve that problem for the folks. Make it a little easier for them to apply."
Yeah, that would be great. And like having more partners across the state, applicators who want to get into this. We've got partners that we work with in Montana, but we're still growing and looking for more people.
Leo, would you? Oh, go ahead, Leo.
Yeah, I was going to ask Ford, does it take specialized spraying equipment, or what kind of equipment does it take to distribute it if you don't put it in an irrigation system?
Oh, you can apply it through any regular spray rig. It's slightly different. It's not quite as fine. I think it's 40 microns or larger. So you need to just pull your filters out, and it usually works just fine.
Okay.
So most farmers who've got their own sprayers can do it, but there's a lot of people we work with in Paradise Valley who don't even own their own fertilizer spraying equipment.
Okay, thank you.
Ford, would you put your contact information in the chat if you would?
Yeah.
So people can grab it there, and excuse me, like I said, we should have this together after the recording goes out too, with all of your contact information in it for folks, but just in case somebody wants to reach out to you right away. Thank you, Ford. How about we're right on time. Leo, you want to go second?
Certainly I can do that, maybe.
Yeah. Hey, Ford, if you stop sharing. Yeah, there we go.
There we go. Okay.
Cool, you're doing it on an iPad. I've not tried that.
Well, it's not working very well, so this might be just strictly verbal.
No problem at all. Let's see. I don't know if I can help you. What are you running into?
I'm running into transferring back and forth to programs.
So if you hit the share
Okay.
button, yeah.
Share button. I don't see a share button. Anyway.
So it should be on the Zoom screen at the very bottom. It should be in green with an arrow. Share screen. At least that's how it looks like on mine. I don't know about on an Apple. And then see the bottom of the Zoom window we're on.
Oh, I've got it here, but it's not making the transfer. So we're just going to do a verbal.
Yeah. Perfect.
Okay. So I wish I had pictures, but I don't. My name's Leo Barthelmess. I'm from Malta, Montana. And interestingly enough, Ford's presentation just now supports what we want to do using grazing animals. By increasing the stock density of an animal, we can start incorporating more manure, more vegetation from residual grazing plants that have been grazed and ungrazed. So in order to do that in this arid landscape that I live in, with pastures that vary in size from 100 acres to 4,000, it's cost prohibitive for the ranch to build fences. So we are using a technology called vents, and it's a geofence or virtual fence. We've collared 450 cows last year and the year before. And our goal with the vents product is to increase the stock densities and also prevent the cows from taking a second bite on a grass plant, so that it can replenish its root systems and continue to grow and support soil biology. Our goals are to increase the number of grass plants or vegetative plants on the rangeland landscape. They don't all have to be for livestock forage. We have an abundant wildlife population here that needs support. So we're just trying to minimize or reduce the amount of bare soil. With more vegetation, we can retain more water on the ranch, either as snow melt or rainwater. We try and promote water infiltration from snow and rain. And all of these things will support soil by the vents technology is a collar that's a warning when she approaches the barrier that we've created. And there's also a physical stimulus that will be implemented if the cow goes beyond the audible. It's just an electronic, kind of like a hot shot, electronics stimulus. So the product has been fairly successful. We've been able to, takes about 2 days to initiate training in the cows. And after the first couple of days, and we can start building a landscape just by using the company's webpage, the boundaries that I want to create. And so we could start to run more cattle on less space and move more often and prevent regrazing emergent growth to promote soil and grass health. We've had very good success. When initially we're getting 98 to 99% compliance in the first 2 or 3 days. One of the drawbacks of it, the batteries in the collars start to fade after about 5 months. So as those collars battery life diminishes, and we lose management ability. But we're collaring in March, and then we turn the cows out on new grass growth, and when the grass is growing fast, we're managing the cattle intensively. And then as grass growth slows down in July, 4 or 5 months later, then it's not so critical to this management. So then we don't use the vents product very much in August and September. We remove the collars and put them back on in November after we replace the batteries. And then we go back into a winter grazing rotation, and we can use protein supplements and high stock densities to knock down decadent vegetation and put it on the ground, so it retards water runoff in a big rain event, and also starts to feed the soil biology. So by recollaring twice a year with new batteries, we're able to manage the cows year round, and we've had really good success doing that. This year, the driest year on record, the properties that we grazed the last 2 winters were far more palatable and far more nutritious for the cattle and the livestock this spring and summer. A little information about how the system works. There are repeater stations. There's 5 repeater stations, cover 95% of the geography of the ranch. And I call up and we have a Zoom meeting with the events engineer in San Diego, California, and I have this menu of pastures that I have built. And he said, yes, this will work, and no, that won't work. So we'll have to change that. So we negotiate this pasture movement boundaries that I want to do. And then when we come to an agreement that what will the technology will allow me to do, then he sends those instructions to the repeater station, which converts a phone signal to a radio signal. And then the radio signal is transmitted to the callers. And then the callers, once they get their instructions, and you can program 16 pastures into a caller. So you could manage your grazing 16 moves, which could be 16 days or 2 months, depending on your goals that you want to achieve. So once the callers have their data information or their instructions, then they communicate directly with a satellite. And so even if the callers don't have line of sight to the transmitter stations, they can pick up those directions. And then once they're programmed, like in rough terrain or forest, then the caller can communicate directly with the satellite. So it's pretty interesting technology, and it works very well. And it's like the early cell phones. They were, the size of a small suitcase, and now they're fit in your pocket. And I'm hopeful, as is the grazing industry, hopeful that we can get some of the bugs out and create more. Because like in my case, we have 60 miles of aged fence on the ranch. It's going to cost $500,000 to replace all that fence. And if we can, as it wears out, if we can replace it with the vents technology, we will at a far cheaper price. That will be beneficial for our ag economies, our grazing economies, but it will also benefit wildlife, because I happen to be in an area that has the second longest wildlife migration in North America. The antelope move back and forth from southern Saskatchewan and Alberta to nearly to the Yellowstone Valley around Billings and Miles City, Montana. So it's really kind of important. It's a big deal. Those antelopes struggle a lot to move across this landscape. And so, and then we have sage chicken mortalities from infrastructure. And, this technology will enable us to address wildlife movements, increase the nutritional value of our rangelands for livestock as well as wildlife. So that's a really brief overview, and I would entertain questions, because you have questions that were probably, you probably want to know stuff I didn't say. So I would certainly entertain some questions to clarify what I said.
Yeah, thanks, Leo. I've got a couple, but anybody else out there? Take yourself off mute, put it in the chat.
I might have missed it, but are they so effective that you can get rid of your perimeter fencing?
They're not that effective. 95% you could still have animals get on a highway or get into an alfalfa field or grain field. So no, I don't at this point in time, we can't eliminate the perimeter fence or legal boundary fence, so to speak. That would just be asking for too much liability. But I have, we have a lot of perimeter fence, but we also have 38 permanent pastures on the property. And as those fences fail from age, we can pull them out and not replace them. So that would be a big benefit for many, many ag operations.
That's cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
Leo, I see one in the chat question from Mary Burrows. Is there a concern about, after physical fences are down, being reliant on a technology that may change or require additional capital investment?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have a lot of anxiety. Once we become dependent on the virtual fence, it's much like part of the agriculture farming communities dependent on chemicals or diesel fuel. And when those prices go up and the commodities don't support that increased price, you're going to be in a bind, literally. No, I absolutely. If the company goes away, what do I do?
Yeah. Well, maybe we need to home grow some innovators to do something similar from Montana, so they're closer. Anyway, I have sort of a technical question. When you go through your day of or working with the company to map out where you're going to move the cattle, do they have to take into account the geography so that they're like, well, we can't actually put a visual fence or invisible fence in the middle of a gully or a draw or something? We have to put it up on a ridge line. So does it limit where you can put them? No?
No, that really isn't. It would maybe over time that would be a consideration, but as we're trying to learn through the technology, it isn't a requirement because we put them up and down coulees and across different drainages. And one of the systems that we've had good luck with this spring is we will build a rectangle around a water source, and then we will build more rectangles adjacent to the water source. So this spring, we had 400 cows on 250 acres for 5 days, and they depleted maybe 60% of the available grazing. And then we built another rectangle, and they had another 90 acres for 2 days. And they had another 90 acres for 2 days. We call it the ladder strategy because there's a limit to, we have to have water in all these pastures. So as long as they've grazed it and dunged it, they say they won't go back and regraze it. So we build a ladder to the next water source. When we get to the next water source, then we prevent the cows from going back to the first water source. Because that in an intensive grazing program, a wagon wheel or a spoke system was very popular and the cattle came into the same source. But without a visible barrier, we're finding that the cattle keep running into the boundary if it's so narrow at the water source. So, and every time they hit the boundary, they burn battery, and you're trying to save the battery for longevity purposes. So with this rectangular ladder system, they don't bump into the boundaries near as often. And I don't know how they know. Maybe it's just they smell fresh grass, but as soon as that boundary goes down, they'll move across it. It doesn't affect their behavior at all.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah. Any other questions? Well, we're right on schedule. So having no other questions, we'll have some questions or time for questions at the end. So if we got some, hold them for a second. But thank you, Leo. That's really interesting. I'd love to come out and see it at some point, maybe next spring, see how it operates. But it sounds fascinating to me. Our next presenter, Colin, you're want to do a little intro about what you're going to present about. And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Carl. So my name's Colin McClure, and I work for an outfit out of Livingston and called the Western Sustainability Exchange. And we have a host of regenerative agricultural tools. And so there's a couple of different products that we're kind of working on right now to kind of help folks that are just doing things just like Leo's doing. And so I will get my screen shared here. Got a little presentation for you. Can you see that okay?
looks good.
Cool. Let me see if I can find the present button. There it is. Hang on 1 second. There it is. Cool. So this is what we're calling the Regenerative Ranch Legacy Toolbox. It consists of 2 different products. We have the Regenerative Ranch Assessment, is what we're calling it, and then also a dashboard tool. So what the Regenerative Ranch Assessment is effectively it's a tool to compare intra and inter-ranch communication, I guess. And so you can have, we're kind of like trying to figure out where the ranch is headed, where folks, like different employees, how they're feeling about what's going on at the ranch, and like what different practices we're trying to implement, that kind of thing. And so we wanted to know kind of how folks were viewing the direction they were going, and how they know once they've achieved kind of a more regenerative ranch approach. And so there's 5 kind of regenerative principles that we're pushing here, mainly just to keep cover on the ground all year round, minimize soil disturbance, keep the roots living and robust, and then increase and maintain biodiversity, and then also to integrate grazing animals, that being the big key component of the assessment. So just kind of, I'm going to fly through this here, but there's 8 management buckets that we're kind of chasing after, everything from economics to soil to grazing, livestock, biodiversity, the people as well, the land. And then once we've taken that, and then we combine that with a ranch, and now we're at our regenerative ranch assessment. And so this kind of pulls up a whole host of questions we have, and it's an online format. So it kind of just takes you through kind of finances, and then succession planning, and then you get into kind of grazing plans and kind of even like a grazing philosophy, that kind of thing. And then what it does is it pops out a report. And so we have a couple of different reports that are available. The flash report is just an automated one that's generated after you take the assessment, and it'll put out kind of an overview and kind of give you kind of where you're strong at, where you could use a little more focus. And then the idea behind that is after you've taken the ranch assessment, then you can kind of say, okay, well, I'm a little deficient in the soil portion of the assessment. Maybe I need to take some classes on some soil rejuvenating, or something like that, or maybe take a Nicole Masters class, or something like that. And so that's kind of what it pops out as. And then and then we have a whole host of, or a whole library of resources that we can kind of direct you towards. So that's like kind of where the value is that we bring to it, is once you have the results of the assessment, then you can go ahead and we can kind of cater to whatever you need. So then it kind of we created the assessment tool, and then we kind of thought, well, okay, that's great and all, but what about managing all of this data that we're collecting and all this knowledge, and then how do we disseminate that information, and then how are we going to organize that? And so kind of like what Leo was talking about with the way that Vents will keep an online tool to move the cattle and kind of do that thing. What we've done is we've created a map-based dashboard tool. And so we're calling the dashboard, and we're calling it, we're kind of still working on a name. So if anybody has any creative names, we're either going to call it the Scout or the Land Health Dashboard, but Land Health is kind of boring. So anyway, but the purpose of it is just to provide ranchers with access to scientific information they need and have requested to make future grazing land management decisions based on solid, relevant data. So effectively, it would be something you would open up every so often, however often you need to pull up whatever type of data that we have presented, whether it be soil data and we'll kind of get into that here in a second. But the way it started, we had a science advisory council that was a group of ranchers, scientists, and some other community folks, and they kind of arose like there's a couple of different tools out there right now, like Pasture Map and Maya, but there's a lot of folks that are using those. They're either way too complex and they're like, this is all a bunch of stuff that I don't need, or it's not exactly, it doesn't really handle the land health portion of what they're trying to do as a regenerative ranch. And so that's kind of where we took these and okay, these are the criteria that we're kind of chasing after. everything from weather conditions to soil data, carbon levels, which is a big part of our bread and butter, is taking carbon and turning that into carbon credits and connecting folks with carbon credits there. And then we do also cover, and then infiltration rates, grazing data, and then also biological and ecological data that could maybe eventually roll into some sort of like ecosystem services trading credit as well. And so, as I said before, that we found there's really no effective and practical way to visualize this data. And I mean, we can only do so much with a spreadsheet. And so with that said, we proposed the solution of the grazing management dashboard. And so really we broke it up into categories. We have the different physical features. We have like your grazing data, and then what you have done in the past, and then what you plan to do in the future. So it's kind of a historical tool to kind of look back, and then also as a future planning tool. And then we can also, hang on 1 second here. And then you can also manage different ecological parameters and see trends in that data as well. And the biggest thing here is, I kind of talked about the need already, but there's a certain type of rancher that we're kind of chasing after. It's somebody that's a little more ecologically and regeneratively minded, and it's just the people that are just excited about regenerative practices and doing things differently, and maybe not better, maybe just different. And so that's kind of where we're headed with the rancher portion. And what we've done is we've partnered with the Yellowstone Ecological Research Center out of Livingston, and they're kind of the tool development portion of it and the data management. And then we tackle the rancher recruitment and training, and then the data acquisition, database management, relationship management, and the technical assistance. So I had some cool visualizations of the actual tool. Let me see if I can find it. So yeah, so here's kind of what the tool is going to look like. It's still kind of in beta testing form, and we had kind of some issues, and we're trying to sort those out right now. But this is effectively what it'll be. You'll have kind of visualizations here where you could see soil data or grazing trends or how long you're in a field or all sorts of things. You'd have weather up here, and then this would be the kind of shapefile map of your ranch, and then they'll be color coded. So green's a good pasture to go into. It's like got a lot of had plenty of rest over the last year or a few years, and then maybe red is a place you should avoid, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's about all I have. This is kind of, there's more data or another visual here, but yeah, I guess I'll open it up for questions there.
Yeah, thanks, Colin. Any questions for Colin? I'll leave a moment there.
Is the bare ground versus litter versus covered, is that picking that out from the GIS, the imagery, or is that something they've select and flag?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways we're doing it. We're taking samples actually out in the field. So we'll take a Doppelmayr square and then throw that out there, and then make an ocular estimate of the cover data, and then we also compare that to the rangelands.app platform, and we'll have that pulled in as well. So we'll have historical ground cover data going back to, I can't remember how long ago, it was 1980s maybe that they operate there. So yeah.
Second, on the carbon credits that you're talking about, are you documenting the increase in carbon capture, like from change in practices and hoping to offset credits or sell credits there, or is it the total carbon capture of the soil and the land?
Yep. So what we do is we're partnered with an outfit named Native Energy. They're out of Vermont. They're kind of the carbon brokerage team, and then we're working on our verification through the Vera standard, which is the actual platform we trade carbon credits on. And so what we do is we go out and calculate a baseline soil. If you can see, this is actual soil sample location here with the blue dot. And what we go out and we get a baseline of soil carbon in tons per acre. And then what we do is we'll go back in 3 years and then 5 years and 10 years. And then it's just based on accruals and additionality. So there's a couple of different ways we set up payments for that. There's like a help build, which is a payment up front to help with infrastructure, like moving water and that kind of thing, and then fences and temporary fences and permanent, semi-permanent, that kind of thing. And then they're also paid, the ranchers are also paid in additionality as well. So whatever they sequester at the end of those allotted times. And so, and there's no penalty of if, say you have a really bad year and then your carbon levels go down. It's not like you can't get, penalized for that. So.
So Colin, what's the process to participate in program?
Well, give me a call, Leo. We'll get you signed up. We'll get you started. We have an intake form, so we just kind of need shape files and that kind of thing. And then once we're with the dashboard tool, the regenerative ranch assessment is ready to rock and roll. Anyone can take it. And there's different. We're still kind of structuring how we have a more complex report that will go out. That'll be kind of a fee for service model for that. But the flash report, anyone can get on our website, find the assessment and take that. And it's a very valuable tool. And I recommend you guys all trying it out and giving us any feedback on it you have. But as far as the dashboard tool is going, we are currently in the second stage of our beta testing. So we have 4 ranches right now that we're have signed up that we're going through those trials, and we should have that second round of beta testing done in the first part of January, we're hoping. And then we'll fix any bugs and anything, and then we'll probably be ready to rock and roll end of next spring to pull more people in. But in the meantime, if you want to get in we're kind of like preloading grazing data and to be able to put into the dashboard. So we could have a conversation about that and get that data all set up. So then when the dashboard is live, we can just plug it in and play with it and get ready to rock and roll. So.
Okay. Thank you. Very good.
You bet. And actually, Leo, we had a couple conversations with the Vents guys. I can't remember the gentleman's name off the top of my head right now, but their heat maps that they use for those or for your cattle, we're trying to work with them to incorporate that into the dashboard tool, so you can kind of see when you pull up the dashboard, then you can see your collars and where they're at and how they've see where your hot spots are and use it as a more aggressive planning tool that way. So.
Well, that's good to hear. I'd hoped to demonstrate some of them, but I couldn't get the technology to work.
Yeah, it was super cool. That's a sweet program you're running. So.
Yeah, the irony of the tech showcase, we can't get the tech to work. Dang it.
Isn't that the way the world works, though?
Yeah. Well, thanks, Colin. I have a question. So also maybe sort of to Leo's question, they're following that on. If you're already talking to the Vance folks, but how about the other data? Are there opportunities where in other situations you could just plug in potential sensors or other data being collected out there through various means, and then that could add to the robustness of decision making this rangeland? Is that ultimately the idea?
Absolutely, yeah. And so realistically, what this is just the platform with which we can visualize the data. So we could pull in, sage grouse leks, and we could have location data for that. We could pull in anything you're monitoring, like maybe you have some CRP that you pulled in on your ranch and you want to monitor that to see see if that's getting bigger, or if the world's your oyster, really. And we have right now we're paying attention to grazing data and then soil carbon data, because those are the 2 things that we're actively taking data on. But with that said, we have an Airtable account that's very flexible and very malleable, that we can kind of cater it to however we want to view this data. So it's pretty cool. And we've we've had conversations with PastureMap and Maya, and to see if they wanted to partner up, but because they're in their own worlds, we haven't been able to convince them that that's what we need to do. So anyway.
I've got a couple of questions, but anybody else out there for any questions? I think we could open it up to Leo, Ford, or Colin now. Any questions for anybody? from the presentations? Not hearing any. Just to all three of you, just to quickly sort of I think I discussed this with all three of you in a sense that one of the motivations of this conversation was really ask a question about, in my mind, is there a role in technology to support regenerative ag practices? And I think from all your presentations, the answer is yes. But is there a way that really you could see it increasing your ability to do the things you're trying to do? So it's not just incremental in a sense, like this is going to take off once you have the ability to really measure, look, watch, and learn about the places that you're managing and that you're ranching on. Is that a good assumption? And maybe share a little bit about your thought on that kind of approach. Like, will technology change how we ranch and farm because of the ability to know more in detail? Ford, you're kind of looking a little ready to go. No?
Oh, I mean, I think it definitely will. It's funny, we had this conversation with a ranch consultant that we do some work with, and he's convinced you're still going to need well-trained humans out there being able to look at the land and figure things out. But no, I think all of these tools will help and technology will help, but it might not fully replace a really good rancher or a really good farmer.
Definitely, I would echo that, Ford. Definitely, because like my dad always used to say, the best fertilizer for a farmer's field is a farmer's footsteps. So I think we're definitely not going to be that far separated. However, I think all the tools we mentioned today have incredible capabilities down the road once we get our dashboard tool and the regenerative assessment off the ground and we get it in more people's hands. I think it's just going to explode. I think we're not be able to keep up with demand. So we're trying to figure out how to scale appropriately when the time comes. So
this is Leo. I would agree with both of your assessments, but I don't think we're talking about replacing the rancher or the manager here. I think we're just talking about helping him do a tremendously better job because he has the tools to make better decisions. I'm near the end of my career, and what I need is, the next generation to have access to these kinds of tools to build on what's been done. And that's the way I look at it, that, the vents, I've made presentations, and the vents technology really excites the young people that are in their 30s on these established mature ranches. And that's what we need, is a little excitement in agriculture. And you guys are helping with that.
absolutely. Well, Leo, I watched your video and I think you're helping with that too. I mean, that's like you're the poster child for regenerative agriculture now at this point. So
Don't embarrass me. So there's a question there. Can we share the slide decks with recordings when we send them out? Of course, the recording will have the presentations with the slide decks in them, but if any of you or all of you want to share your slide deck as a PDF or a presentation, if you send it to me, so call on Leo, Ford, I'll put that in the email out. If you feel like you don't want to share that out, that's fine too. But that is a question for Matthew there. I think that last little bit there, that question, we had this on a previous call, actually, the conversation around generations, the perspectives, and using technology and the adoption of technology in farming and agriculture and ranching. And it's not always a clear cut, like which generation wants to use technology or doesn't, but not that technology is going to replace the management of it, but actually give you the tools, like you said, Leo, to really maybe do it in a different way, in a better way. And I might posit, and see if I go too far here, that it actually kind of democratizes some of it, puts it in your hands more, and maybe in some ways gives you the ability to make some really powerful decisions that maybe otherwise could have been happening sort of, out in the science world or out in the agricultural institutions or companies or something like that. Like, it gives you the power to really see what's going on and make the decisions about your place. Do you think that's going a little too far? Leo, you want to take a stab at that one?
Yeah, I don't think that's going too far, because a lot of these, in my mind, a lot of these operations, they need to scale up. I need to share forge technology. I need to participate in that, and I need to participate in Colin's programs as well. But it's going to take a team of people. I've got my plate's full now and falling off on the table, and I need a younger person or a next generation person to add to and incorporating these kinds of products. So no, I agree. It's not going to replace anybody. It's just we need to scale it up and build on it.
Any other thoughts out there? Questions? Well, how about we've just got a couple minutes here for many of you presenters or otherwise. What would you like us to take up next? What would be sort of a natural progression or an interesting topic for us to see if we can find a few folks in Montana to discuss regarding technology and agriculture and innovation?
Well, one of the big time consumers for me to do a better job is range monitoring or monitoring my resources on the ground. There's the RAP program and those kinds of things, but we need, I can spend days monitoring changes in my soil health and my vegetation composition and those kinds of things. And that's a big, unexciting time killer. It's important, but it's hard to motivate people to participate. And sometimes in an arid landscape I live in, change is glacial. It's slow, and it's hard to motivate yourself to go out there and look at that. So monitoring change is an important product.
Anybody else? Thoughts? Topics?
I think an interesting topic might be to find some of these companies that are working with producers who are doing these regenerative techniques and look into the markets where they're able to, it's not like a certified regenerative program, but see how they're able to take their management practices and have better products and get those to a premium in the market.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Got some ideas there. Well, it's 6 o'clock on the button. Colin, Leo, Ford, thank you all for your presentations and sharing with us today. Thanks all the folks that joined us as well. Like I said, it'll usually take us a few days, so say mid next week to get this recording put together and sent back out there to all the participants. Presenters, if you want to send me an email with your presentation, if you do want to share your slide deck, then I can put that in that email as well. If you don't need to. I think in the recording, of course, we'll also have the chat, so the contacts and such will be there as well. Any last thoughts before we jump off?
I don't think so. Just thanks for the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carl. Bye, guys.
You the same. Thanks, Carl.